I think that the happiest work what we can do is actually farming. I mean, homesteading. We this modern man working in offices, it just doesn't do the good for your soul as having working with animals, working in the field, being in the sort of ecosystem of that. And now we have this situation where that skills of homesteading and farming are the only, in a sense, guaranteed ways that you're going to be able to feed yourself without UBI once AI takes more and more of our jobs. And so there's a whole bunch of our populations that are weak because there's people that have zero skills farming, zero skills growing anything. And they're just going to be totally dependent on UBI now.
I might be one of those. If my job is taken away by a machine and I'm not smart enough to find a new job, I don't know how to hunt. I don't know how to farm. I don't know how to sew clothes. I don't know how to do any of those things. The only thing I know how to do is go to a store and buy stuff, and I'm very good at that. But that's pretty much the only thing I know how to do. I know how to go shopping. Yeah, I'm with you. I hope it doesn't come to that. But and I know how to program machines, and I know how to design systems, and I know how to communicate effectively with people. I hope that one of those skills is still going to be needed in the day of UI. Otherwise, yeah, we have some figuring out to do. Right? If we have this discussion again in 20 years, I might have a totally different perspective on things.
I think it's quite naive of humanity to have like the most useless thing to have is basically a garden with grass on it. It doesn't do anything unless you have like a goat or something like that that's eating the grass. There's zero survival utility of having just a garden of grass in it. Based on my studying of this a whole survival topic over the last year and a half, you could get so much more nutrients from just putting in like carrots and cabbages, you know, things like
Well,
that.
you know
And
why we know why we grow grass, why we have lawns. One of our ways of showing wealth, any luxury item, a luxury watch or a luxury car doesn't tell time any better than a regular $30 Casio or a regular Toyota. The reason that we get luxury items is because we want to show our wealth. We want to show our power. We want to show our earning ability. That helps us attract mates in some cases, right? And that's why a peacock, whose feathers provided um, no advantage in, it doesn't make it flee faster, or it doesn't make it find food faster, but it makes it find better mates, and then it could have more little peacock babies. So the reason we want to have lawns is because it shows I have spare land, I have spare water, I have spare labor. And I know how to flaunt it. And it doesn't make me happy, or perhaps. And once we're down to survival, you're probably right. I'd be much better at growing up some turnips and cabbages. I don't know how it would show up on on the mating market if I said I have a small house with a patch of ground and some turnips and radishes. I don't know, right? Right, and I wear a $30 Casio and take a scooter to work, uh, but but it'll feed me.
but unless you got like kids that you can have, it's good for playing football and that kind of stuff. That's a good use case for having it. But maintaining a grass lawn is incredibly boring. Okay, I like the smell of grass once you mow it, but compared to having like a patch of land where you're plowing the soil. I love plowing the soil. That's a great workout, great for your back. Um, and they're digging up the weeds. If people haven't done it, it's great. Planting different types of food in there, seeing the different types of food growing, and in God's wisdom, He made a lot of the different trees around us that harvest at different times of the year. And some of the plants, like fig trees, there's like a 3 or 4 week period where the fruits are coming at different times, and then you can dry that food and store it for the winter time. You can do that with Ukrainians are great at doing it. You get tomatoes. We have a lot of tomatoes right now in Ukraine. You literally people get boxes of them, take them home, and they'll have like 50 big jars, and they'll basically pasteurize them by boiling water and putting it in there one or two times, and then they put like herbs in there, like dill and I think some vinegar and things like that. And what they do is they'll have like, imagine like 20 big containers with like cucumbers and tomatoes, and they put the boiling water in there, and then they put like 2 or 3 layers of blankets on top of it, and that thing pasteurizes all night long, sealed with special metal containers that lids that they do. They boil and put them on, it locks in. You've got your survival food for the winter. It's not difficult. Even just common trees around here, you can learn from creation. Like a squirrel taught me how to eat from a hazel tree. I didn't even realize that the hazel tree produced hazelnuts, but I watched a squirrel and it was eating something over there, and I thought, oh, it's found hazelnuts. I went there, tried and ate it myself. I actually learned survival skills from a squirrel.
Well, you know, gardening is very, very satisfying, and toiling the ground is certainly a good workout. But there is comfort in knowing that even if you don't work all that well, and even if it doesn't rain, and even if the animals dig up your seeds and eat them, or the birds eat them, or the animals eat them, you still have a job to go to. That there's comfort in that. When you work the farm, when you toil the farm, when you toil the land, and you know that if you're not blessed by rain this winter, you might go hungry next year. You might watch one of your children die. Then farming takes on a whole different form. Then the curse of with the toil of your brow shall you eat your bread becomes a real curse. So yes, farming is great, and farming is fun, and farming is very, very satisfying when it works, when you're successful, or when you have a fallback plan. But if you've ever met a farmer who had a bad year, and then at the end of the year he had to eat his farm animals, he had to eat his oxen or his sheep or his goats, and knowing that he's eating his potential to ever survive, and that's the last year that he's in business, but he's postponing his doom by 1 year. It's a very, very sad place to be. It's a very, very desperate place to be. So I agree with you. Farming can be very, very satisfying, and it's an important thing. And eating and growing your own food, and then eating food that you grow yourself, is a deeply satisfying experience. It's an experience of I did it myself and I accomplished it. But there's a downside there. There is a downside, and industry has made us, with a lot of infrastructure, be a very, very safe society. Back to UBI, right? UBI. I think farmers are also going to need also some basic income, because farmers also could fall on bad weather, fall on bad times, fall on bad seed, fall on somebody that steals, or a tractor that drives over their land, or some other misfortune, or they might be not very skilled at what they do. Not everybody knows how to be a very good farmer. So that's that.
There's some things that are really easy that in Ukraine is common, that is just like in the past, almost every day now, I take raw goat's milk from the goat and it's warm and drink it. And it tastes better than this pasteurized crap we get in supermarkets, right? A goat
Does
is an
that hold
amazing
year
survival
through?
tool. Every day this goat produces a bottle of milk.
365 days a year.
I don't know, but you basically, goats are such great machines, right? You got all this grass around you that you can't eat.
And I just
a goat
right now
turns that grass into milk.
Yes, and that's a wonderful thing, and I hope nobody eats your goat. I hope your goat continues to surviving. That's a wonderful thing. Now, if your herd ever gets sick and dies, then you'll figure it out. Then you'll buy another goat, or you'll do whatever you have to do. But I'm not criticizing that at all. Yeah, that's great, and it's considered, if you drink it fresh, it's supposed to be healthy. It's only when it starts when it stays on the shelf for too long that you need to pasteurize it.
That's a disconnect that we have. We have this unnatural society. I think a lot of mental health problems basically happens because people don't have goats and they have computers. They just God designed us to
Oh,
be in nature, right? And we have this artificial life of just technology everywhere, and that's why a lot of mental health problems happen. I think.
that is true. People used to be a lot more comfortable with their animals and be a lot more home with their animals. And when you deal with animals, that's why people today, even in the modern world, people find pets to be very, very good for their mental health and be very good more than children. Some say pets teach you a certain kind of restraint, a certain type of calmness, a certain type of sympathy and empathy. And in days of old, people didn't need pets. They had cattle, they had goats, they had chickens, they had whatever they had. You don't need pets if you're surrounded by animals all day, sentient beings that depend on you, sentient to some extent or another. Um, and yeah, I'm with you on that one. I'm with you on that one.
A
Everybody get a
great a
goat.
great pet to have is just a chicken, just a female chicken going around the stables and all that stuff. The one that you just don't eat. They're actually really clever. They're really intelligent, and they're kind of low, good for your blood pressure. I think.
Okay, I'll have to convince my wife of that one. I'll have to convince my wife to get a chicken. Um, you know, it's very interesting. This is a totally different topic, but it's interesting that in days of old, when people lived with farm animals and had beasts all over, chickens and goats and cows and pigs, they had no problem with eating them. We didn't see vegetarianism as a thing until the modern age, when people started becoming more and more detached from their animals, and the food process became more industrialized. That you see the call for vegetarianism. And maybe that's part of the call for vegetarianism is a protest against the industrialization of the food make of the meat making process of the beef and poultry and pork industries. And many vegetarians say, well, if I grew my own animals, I wouldn't feel the same way about it. Just a thought.
Mhm. Well, maybe if I come to visit your part of Israel sometime, maybe whatever 2 or 3 years, and I visit your place, and it's growing all sorts of turnips and carrots, and there's sounds of goats and chickens, I'll know that my influence was good.
Absolutely. And yes, Nikos, right? If you ever come to Israel, I would love to show you around. This is a one. Have you ever been here?
Never been.